Springfield is a popular place with a lot of characters. That's the real charm of The Simpsons. It's been a reflection of our society for over 30 years. And in this animated city, like any city, there are a lot of crimes. Today, we're bringing in more Simpsons characters into our courtroom. Hey guys, I'm Brad with Wicked Binge, and this is Sentencing the Simpsons characters for their crimes. Like our other series-based installments, we're going to be tackling characters for their crimes committed in episodes and situations, as that opens the door to a more nuanced discussion of crimes and events. But occasionally, we'll be looking at a couple of overarching crimes seen throughout the series. With that out of the way, let's get to the docket. Court is in session. Of course, we'll be starting with Homer Simpson in the episode Simple Simpson. Homer becomes a costume hero known as Pie Man to protect his daughter, later using his powers in Springfield to help those in need. Despite this noble inspiration, it doesn't change the fact that he's committed a lot of crimes during this episode. First is the obvious vigilantism, which is illegal in most places.
The Pie Man will strike!
This is actually the basis for the cops hunting him down. Second, he commits assault. This includes the initial pieing of the rich Texan, comic book guy, and others. There is destruction of property, where he does that really cool swing from the billboard. He even gets a charge for assaulting a child when he pies a Girl Scout in the face while under Burns' orders. Pieing people in the face is a relatively harmless form of assault, but it's still technically assault. So we sentence him to 1 year in prison with a chance at parole. Next is Lisa Simpson from the episode Wild Barts Can't Be Broken. This episode is unique because it features the whole town having a curfew for the children, and upon deciding to fight back, they're clearly breaking the law. So let's get the obvious out of the way. Lisa clearly breaks curfew during the episode, and as such would be legally liable. However, she's also on the line for aiding and abetting Nelson's destruction of property when he pulls up a part of the gate to let her through. She's also part of the unauthorized radio operation to use against the adults. This is an FCC violation, although it's hard to say if they would find out about this or even prosecute this. Later, she's among those who help in the theft of many parts needed for the plan they had concocted. That plan, which is revealing secrets of the adults, in itself doesn't seem to be breaking any laws, and in fact, may be exactly what the police would want, as it would help them track down criminals. However, since they use it to get the curfew lifted, this is blackmail, and as such, would likely be prosecuted. In fact, we believe that 2 months in juvie would be a perfect amount of time for the crime she had committed. Next is Chief Clancy Wiggum in the episode Sky Police. Wiggum only has a major part during the first act. During the events of the episode, he fails to provide assistance to those in danger, as he doesn't go with Lou and Eddie to stop the sniper. He commits identity theft by pretending to be Clancy Wiggins, so he can open his mail without any repercussions.
Of course I'm Clancy Wiggins, you idiot!
This leads to him utilizing a jetpack meant for the military, and he does this without a license, which is distinctly mentioned. When he has the jetpack, he disturbs the peace, destroys property, and even incites a jailbreak. When the episode wraps up, Wiggum commits 2 more heinous acts, including the kidnapping and what may be considered assault of Nelson by bringing him up high enough to need a breathing mask. Second, he murders 2 graffiti artists by dropping down and grinding them with the propellers. One may call this manslaughter, but according to the song he sings, Drop Down on Their Heads, they won't even know why they're dead. It implies it was entirely accidental.
Squash perps on their heads, they won't know why they're dead.
So we have to say that Wiggum deserves nothing less than life in prison without parole. Next is Chief Wiggum's wife, Sarah Wiggum, in Season 32, Episode 17, Uncut Femmes. Sarah Wiggum is the wife of Chief Wiggum and the mother of Ralph, and while she's not utilized often, in this episode, we learn a lot about her backstory. Before we even get to her backstory, she's tampered with military clocks and committed the act of theft from the captain of the boat via lockpicking. After we learn more about her, it turns out she used to be part of a group of criminals who pull off a multitude of heists in her past. This includes conspiracy to commit grand larceny when it comes to the hourglass diamond that they got betrayed over.
My best friends were arrested.
They also then successfully commit grand larceny by stealing a bat from the trader. At the end of the episode, she's also responsible for framing Nagel for a completely new set of theft and gets away scot-free. Sarah's crimes are small potatoes compared to others, but based on them, 5 years in prison with a chance of parole is the best sentence. Moving on to Cecil Terwilliger from Season 8's Brother from Another Series. Cecil is a younger brother of Sideshow Bob, who takes up a villain role in his debut episode. While most of the episode shows him having a relatively non-villainous plan to build a dam for Springfield, by the end of it, it becomes revealed. Cecil commits an attempted populicide, trying to wipe out the entire population of Springfield by drowning and destroying them using the dam he was building. This was attempted using Plan Op obsolescence or intentionally building something with a limited use or shelf life. He also tried to criminally frame Sideshow Bob, which would have made Bob's already bad reputation worse.
The one who's been working at the dam and has a grudge against Springfield?
Cecil is less of a criminal mastermind than his brother, but considering the atrocity he was planning to commit, all came about because he was jealous that Bob became Krusty's sidekick, so there's no good reason for this. Because of his crimes, it's obvious that he should be sentenced to death, preferably via the electric chair. Next is Russ Cargill from The Simpsons movie. Russ is the head of the EPA and seemingly very concerned for the environment when it comes to the city of Springfield. Due to the events of the film, he uses his direct line with the president to figure out a proper solution to the problem.
So here is our chance to kick some ass.
This solution is placing a massive dome over the town, which is of course false imprisonment. After imprisoning everyone, he then uses the president's supposed stupidity against him by basically forcing his hand to destroy the town, an attempted populacide that would likely have unintended consequences. However, he tries to cover it up, and this would likely be considered treason considering the events that lead up to it. He kidnaps the Simpsons family, abuses his power, is obviously corrupt, and does all of this for his own political gain, making it terrorism.
Because I'm a rich man who wanted to give something back. Not the money.
Russ attempted to annihilate an entire town, and the only reason he's not vilified more is because it's done in the name of helping the environment. Usually, eco-terrorism is the right idea done in the wrong way, but in this case, his solution is so horrible, there's no way you can agree with it. Russ is a maniac of the highest order, and his crimes are so blatant and so evil that his punishment would be severe. Russ's punishment is a public execution, likely by the president, with the electric chair. The final criminal of the day is Costas Becker from Serious Flanders, Part 1 and Part 2. Costas was a member of the Capital City Mob and engaged in their organized crime tactics by becoming a debt collector for them. His job was based around threats, blackmail, and extortion, and throughout his time there, he got into a firefight with the Sislak brothers. After losing his money, thanks to the Flanders' father, he tries to extract it from his son, Ned.
This is now your debt to me.
This, of course, leads to him kidnapping, stalking, and torturing Homer to draw out Ned. Costas is a man who cares about his debt being paid, and because he cares so much, he goes on what is essentially a murder spree to get some money back. He likes order and his place in that order.
At every other time, do expect it.
However, he was nearly never caught, and since he didn't survive in those episodes, he definitely couldn't face justice. What would be the most just? Well, there are one of two possibilities, and considering his motives were more than money, one comes to mind. He would be executed, and because of the nature of the episode, it would be via firing squad. Alright, court is adjourned. Let us know in the comments section if you agree with our sentences, and tell us who we should cover next. Remember to hit that notification bell and check out our Cinema Sentencing channel as well. But most importantly, stay wicked.